So one of the best ways to improve your customer experience, which we know will dramatically improve your business, is to have clear lines of communication with your clients. And that's something that can be really hard with these multiple channels between email and text. And what you really need is to centralize that in one place. And that's something that we've been able to do as we switched over to PT Everywhere. Within our clients' accounts, we can actually message right back and forth with them. They can manage their home exercise plan within there. And it allows us to really compartmentalize the communication that we have with those clients instead of losing an email in the inbox or missing a text. And then it's very hard to dig yourself out of that hole because they feel like you're not very responsive, with them. And for us, it's made a really, really big difference. It helps make our staff more efficient. It helps us not miss things as much with the volume of people that we're working with. And it's a really smart way of really compartmentalizing your communication with your clients so it doesn't interfere with the rest of the channels you have communication with family and friends and things like that. So I think it'd be huge for your practice to centralize it the way we have. Head over to pteverywhere.com. Check out what our friends are doing over there. I think it's really cool. I think you really like it.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mattei, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. And today we're talking about goals. We're talking about goals outside of your business, things that are important for us to both quantify and track that don't involve average visit rate or revenue made or whatever, business metrics that are very important for us to track. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very important for us to do that. And if you're not doing goal planning for your business, you're just missing out on a massive amount of potential growth, that you would be seeing in your business. And the more accurate you are about tracking things, the more that you are really doing the right work and intentionally detailing out what that work is, the more likely it is that you're going to actually achieve your goals, which is one of the reasons why, any of the programs that we have, whether it be our Rainmaker program or our mastermind, we have a goal setting portion of that we want people to go through first, the very first thing that they go through, because it really does help us get better outcomes with whatever their goal is. Now, for me, I've started recently really looking at other areas outside of just the business and taking the intentionality of actually picking what I want to accomplish in my business and defining that and breaking that down into actionable things that I want to be able to do each month and each week and each quarter. And now starting to look at that in other areas of my life. And it's been really helpful to detail those things out. And I think it's one of those areas that we just forget about. And it's sadly something that will lead to just neglect in other areas of your life. You'll become very one-dimensional. This has happened to me over the last few years. I mean, I think it happens to everybody when they're just starting the business. Like, you have this obsessive desire to not fail, to make something work, and it takes a massive amount of effort, time, and doing that over a long period of time, of sustained effort is really hard, right? I turned down a lot of softball game invites, turned down a lot of concert invites, turned down a lot of things, family events that I didn't attend because of just working, right? And I think it's easy for you to just stay there and just focus on the business side. But what I've learned and what I want to share with you really is, well, if you take this organization that you put towards your business and you just take another bucket of your life, another area that you want to improve, if we take our same approach that we use with our own business and the organization level of tracking that we use within our own business, and we start to put that towards other areas, it makes a dramatic difference in terms of, how you feel, how connected you are to people around you, and honestly, how happy you are. I think that's what it really comes down to. And the more that I have had a chance to work with our mastermind in particular, because this is where we have the closest sort of relationships with these business owners, the more I realize that the personal side of it, the things outside of the business are really what need to be addressed just as much as the business. And the more those are addressed, the better the business does. And I'll just give you a couple examples of areas that you can really look at this to define how you're doing. And then, come up with a plan of what you want to do going forward and develop some goals and track those to work towards those and check in and see how you're doing. Just like you were quarterly planning for your business or annual planning for your business. Because one of the big areas that I see, and I'm very guilty of this myself, I ran myself into the ground physically whenever I started my business. I have, I've had health issues associated with the lack of sleep I had for years, the level at which I was working for years, the travel I was putting in for years. Honestly, for the first 3 years of starting our business, I'm surprised I don't have more long-term, negative effects from it, right? I saw all my internal blood markers look terrible. I would track these things in the Army before I left, and one simple one would just be, your as a male testosterone, and also looking at C-reactive protein, which is a marker of inflammation, and as well as sleep debt. And I would track these, monthly or every 6 months to a year. And when I left the Army, I went from testosterone being close to 800 or around 800 down to like in the mid 200 range. 2 years out of me starting my business. So the level at which my grandfather was probably at, because I was sleeping no more than 4 hours a night. I was just working a ton. I was stressed all the time. And, I just put my body through the ringer and, came out the other side, and I'm fine, for it, right? We're very resilient. We can tolerate that for a long period of time, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. If I go back and change anything, it would have been take care of myself along the way, sleep more, not work as much, just be smarter about how I was working, get mentorship earlier so that someone would tell me what I was doing right or wrong instead of just trying to figure it out, which is incredibly inefficient, and I wasted a ton of time, doing that. But with that, that led to me not being as not having as good of emotional control, because I was tired all the time. I was overworked. I was stressed. I was scared that the business that I had left a stable position for, where I had a pension plan waiting for me, wasn't going to work, and that led me to be shorter with family. Especially with Ashley, to strain the most important relationship that I had, to spend less time being present around my children, to, take worse care of myself, to live off of stimulants, just drinking coffee all the time. And, and really strain a lot of these other areas of relationships and impact and spirituality and feeling connected to other people around me. So many of you may be going through this right now. You may be like legitimately tired, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you feel like you don't have enough time to do everything. But I would really encourage you to look at these other areas, especially just the two areas of your health and your relationships. Is it a win if you hit the finish line, whatever your revenue goal is? These numbers are arbitrary, by the way, because I can tell you no additional zero in my bank account has really changed much for me. It definitely hasn't improved the relationships that are most important to me. It's just with value creation and being around long enough and doing the right things, your business is going to grow, and you'll gain financial independence from that, which is amazing. But would you take financial independence at the expense of a divorce and no relationship with your kids, as well as your body being injured all the time and you being completely unhealthy internally? Would you take that trade-off? Would you trade business success for a divorce, no relationship with your kids, and being incredibly unhealthy physically and mentally? If you said yes to that, I don't know what to tell you. Most of you are probably saying, hell no, I wouldn't do that. Would never do that. But yet what we say and what we do are dramatically different. Dramatically different. If someone had asked me that, I'd be like, no way. There's no way I would do that. But the reality was I was doing that. And Ashley's a saint for sticking it out, with what I was like for years. And luckily my kids are probably too young to remember me not really being around, and when I was around, not really being there. And it's because I wasn't focused on anything besides the business. It became very one-dimensional and unhealthy. Even though we had success in that area, now that, we're at a place where we are much more intentional about taking care of ourselves, much more intentional about spending time, much more intentional about being present, much more intentional about self-care, our businesses have grown even more. It's so funny. It's like, you think that by doing less, your business will do less. But when you build a business and you get the right people involved, you do more of the right things, less of just spinning your wheels and trying to do everything yourself. You end up being in a much better position as far as the business goes, but also taking care of yourself makes you a better boss, makes you a better leader, makes you a better spouse, makes you a better father or mother. And these are the areas that I challenge you to really take a hard look at as far as health, as far as relationships go, to make sure that you're not just becoming one-dimensional like I was for so many years. And, I challenge you to come up with a couple goals. Come up with a couple goals this year as far as your health goes. What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to be at a certain weight? Do you want to be able to do a certain, or lift a certain amount of weight at a certain movement? Do you want to be able to, run a certain race in a certain amount of time? Do you want to just set a number of, hey, you want to do, 3 yoga sessions a week, right? Over the course of the year, you're looking at 150. So I want to do 150 yoga sessions a year, and track it. What are you actually doing? What are you completing that? You want to not eat refined sugar, except for once a week, something to that effect. Are you tracking those things? Are those things that you're actually holding yourself accountable to because you've defined these goals? As far as relationships go, when's the last time you took your wife out on a date? This is something that I'm still not as good about as I should be. With us being busy, our kids the age that they are, with all the things that they're getting into, but it's just not. It has to be the thing that we prioritize, time with the people that that matter the most to you. When's the last time you did something individually with your kid? When's the last time you asked them what they wanted to do and gave them, an evening or an afternoon on the weekend that was exclusively just playing with Legos, or exclusively just playing with Barbies, or going on a bike ride, or whatever it is that they want to do? When's the last time that you actually did that? And are you defining what's important to you and sticking to it on your goals? Because the other areas outside of the business vastly outweigh the importance of the business, for sure. Because like I said, I highly doubt any of you would trade out business success for a divorce from somebody that you love and a poor relationship with your kids. So if you feel that way, I challenge you to define some goals that you want to be able to actually accomplish and stick to, whether it be on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, in the areas of health and the areas of relationships. Because without your health and without the people around you and the relationships that really, make your time impactful, what's it worth? It's definitely not worth an extra zero in your bank account. Hey, real quick before you go, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I would love it if you got involved in the conversation. So this is a one-way channel. I'd love to hear back from you. I'd love to get you into the group that we have formed on Facebook. Our PT Entrepreneurs Facebook group has about 4,000 clinicians in there that are literally changing the face of our profession. I'd love for you to join the conversation, get connected with other clinicians all over the country. I do live trainings in there with Eve Gigi every single week, and we share resources that we don't share anywhere else outside that group. So if you're serious about being a PT entrepreneur, a clinical rainmaker, head to that group, get signed up, go to facebook.com/groups/PT Entrepreneur, or go to Facebook and just search for PT Entrepreneur, and we're going to be the only group that pops up under that name.